Good evening and welcome to the stream. Let's first of all get rid of the flicker on this light. That wasn't the way I intended to do it, but there we go. And you now need a little hat. There we go. One of these days I'll remember to do that little test and sort that out before I start the stream, but you can't expect me to do everything. I've only just remembered to change my glasses. There we go. Welcome. So tonight we carry on where we left off last night, basically darkening off this window and then looking to adjust some of the colour ranges around here. For example, this is meant to be white in shadow, grey therefore. This in the original train is blue. As you can see, they look almost the same colour, so I need to make an adjustment to that to make it darker as well. This is meant to be the same colour as that. I've got to make an adjustment to that. A little bit of a cycle, but we'll start with darkening off the window and we'll go from there. Fairly certain this area down here, which I left in case I wanted to put a pillar in, when I kind of look at this from a distance, this black area does look like the underneath of the beam. You see it that way, therefore I probably will fill that in. I'm a little bit of a coward in that. I'm going to leave it for a little bit longer though, just to see how I get on with it. So we'll heat this tool up and it's hot now. So we will get on with this window. Actually, I was doing it the other way up because I was working along the bottom edge. That camera is flashing a little bit with just as the light changes. Trying to achieve a consistent colour. Actually, I better work that way. Moving off the board, I'm less likely then to get a dark patch on the end of the board. That area just there took colour really quickly. You have to be a little bit careful I don't burn too much around there, but burn in this particular case I don't mean set fire to it, I mean make it darker than I intended. It's a little bit of a, some of that terminology is a little bit of a hangover from photographic things where in processing, if you're darkening a particular area, you're burning it in. Now as I am making this darker, the darker I make it, the harder it is to make a consistent image. So you're consistent, same colour across the whole of the surface and not to get tooling marks into it, which basically are sort of small lines that come from just the way the tool's been used. There's always a temptation when you're doing this where the colour isn't quite coming either as you want it or in what seems like a reasonable time. It seems to take a long time sometimes. The temptation is to just hold the pen in one place. It's a temptation to be resisted, because invariably what happens then is you'll get just a really dark mark really quickly, and that is usually not what you intend, and therefore you have to spend a lot of time fixing it or redoing from scratch. But even though I know that, it's still a temptation. Unless you're doing sort of high black areas or doing stamp like work, whenever you've got a pyrography tool on the wood, keep it moving. Essentially, it should never be still. It might move really slowly, but it should never be still. What's happening here is, although the surface is taking its time to pick up colour, by going over it I keep adding heat, and it gets hotter and hotter until it eventually does produce a colour, and the colour that I want. And it's better to build up the heat slowly, as I keep mentioning, because you've got more control over the colour then. If you build it up really fast, you've got less control. You have to have very fast reactions to be able to just take the tool off at just the right time, and everything like that, so it's a lot easier to build it up slower. So I'm working with a tool which is described as being a flat shader. Sometimes tools get odd names. This one is kind of descriptive in a way. It's called a flat shader because the bottom's flat, as you can see if I just hold it sideways. That's actually in contrast to another type of shader, which is called a spoon shader. And just to show you the difference, this one here is a spoon shader. Now it kind of looks sort of flat as well, and until you get a more close-up look at it, and it's got a spoon-shaped bowl, and that produces a slightly different texturing effect. Generally speaking, spoon shaders are supposed to be easier for beginners. I don't actually know whether that's true or not, but it does tend to need less skill to produce a reasonable shade, but very quickly you do sometimes get quite a bit of a limitation with it because of that spoon shape, and the flat shader then becomes more useful to you as you develop skill. It's a lot easier to burn or create dark marks with a flat shader where you didn't intend. Doesn't look too bad, except I've got a line across there. If you've seen the stream before, you'll know that I sometimes, and as I'm doing here, will use the camera and the computer display of the camera as a way to take a different way to look at the image, and it helps me spot areas where I haven't quite been as consistent. This area, as you might see, is slightly lighter than the rest around here, so I just need to apply a little bit more heat, create a little bit darker colour, just to remove that slightly light looking effect. Cagliati, good evening, welcome to the studio this evening. Nice to see you. I don't know if you've been streaming since the last time I got your stream, but don't recall you've been on for a while, so I hope everything's okay. This edge is proving a little bit awkward. No, okay. Well, there's nothing that says you have to. As you can see, I'm developing some black spots there, which I really didn't want to get, but just this edge is for some reason picking up colour really quickly. Which then makes it a little bit of a challenge to get rid of light spots like I'm doing here without burning. Oh, that's not very good of the cat. What did the dude knock it off the table? My two of our cats have been doing that sort of thing just recently, curling up on the desk and pushing everything out of the way, and then stretching and pushing everything out of the way, and it just lands on the floor. Well, you could do without the, I guess you could manage without the face cam. That'd be one way of doing it. I'm not doing too bad, thank you very much. Life is a bit busy trying to sort things out to do with streaming and what have you, but we'll get there eventually. Okay, so I'm now going to darken this top area off. I'm hoping I'm going to keep it a bit lighter than down here. That will help in the illusion of it being a slightly curved window. Oh, I see. And that, yeah, that kind of makes sense then as to how it would be a problem. I see. Fluffy Twiglet, good evening. Welcome. Trust you've had a good day today. More to the point, has your paper making and pens arrived yet? And if they have you tried them out yet? I'm kind of betting you might not have been able to resist if they've arrived. Oops, there's it. Sorry about that. Your hat moved. Oh dear. Oh dear. Well, my order hasn't arrived yet either, but I'm expecting that tomorrow. Hope I'm not going out tomorrow. Don't think so. If it arrives tomorrow, you'll have the whole weekend to play. So you're going to be buying a new graphics tablet, Cagliati, or are you going to see if you can get it repaired? It's just a little bit too abrupt an edge on that, so let's just darken and fade that edge off there a little bit. Yeah, take a look at you. You mean it's not quite so obvious, Cagliati? I'm working on a pyrographic image. It's a monorail. It's from about the original photograph. And Castang, thank you very much for the follow. The original image, or the real life model from which this arises, is a Disney World monorail in Florida, probably from about 15 years ago, something like that. And they just looked good moving around, so I took lots of photographs, and what I did when I first started airbrushing is I painted an airbrush image of one of the monorails, and this pyrography is based on that image. So it's sort of loosely based on the airbrush image, which is sort of loosely based on the photograph. So that's where it comes from. So sort of trains, but not quite a train really. Well, I know it is a train, but it's not quite a train really, is it? Somewhat more futuristic than a train. A bit like a rocket ship more than anything else. Now let's see if I can darken on this edge around here a little bit as well. Ectillion, good evening. Is it Ectillion or Exilian? Not sure which. I guess you could. I could pronounce it either way, but the you do is another matter. Good evening. Welcome. Now, this is a relative challenge to try and do this. I'm resisting going that way, just because you tend to get marks however you do it, but you tend to get marks that look in that sort of direction, and that kind of would distract a little bit from me. If I have to do it that way, I have to do it that way. But so what I'm trying to do is come in above the wood, land it and carry on so I don't get a black mark. But this is precision landing. To land just right at that edge. And clearly I need practice at it, and this is practice, but Exilian. Okay. I shall hopefully remember that. But between my memory and colanders stand a better chance of holding things. It's really hard. Let's see if I can manage to do it sideways without creating to do this. I've kind of really got to hold it really lightly, almost not in contact with the wood. The brown on the surface is rather like a varnish, and but it's one that will soften with heat. So if I press down too much, I start dragging it, which creates a streaking effect. And even if I don't press down too hard, I create that streaking effect, which makes doing this challenging, because I don't want that vertical streak. If anything, I want them horizontal. Yeah, you see, I can now see sort of vertical, hopefully it won't come out on the video, but I can see now vertical sort of streaks going that way. So what I'm going to try and do is go over the top and just drag them the other way to at least disguise them, if not remove them altogether. But actually one of the best ways of doing this might be just to turn the tool down, which gives me a little bit more leeway. So you're juggling the heat content being applied to the wood by using a different technique, in this case turning it down. Kind of might seem obvious, but sometimes it's better not to turn it down, but just to move the tool a lot faster. And essentially, you develop your own techniques for doing things as you do this. There isn't a right way or a wrong way. Well, I suppose technically there is. If I want a very light line and I take this and just hold it on the wood, I ain't going to get a really light line. Technically it's the wrong way to do it, but hopefully you understand what I mean. See, that's my sense of humour kicking in there. Okay, now this edge is still now looks lighter, but we can deal with that. And now that I've turned the tool down, as I say, I've got more leeway. I can be a little bit more precise. I don't have to be as fast landing it. And this really is kind of like using a pencil or using a pen to keep just putting, almost stroking over to just darken it slightly. Like you might do, for example, with a charcoal, hard charcoal or a hard graphite pen. It's a bit like working with a graphite, with a graphics tablet. I couldn't remember what that was called just then. Test of hand-eye coordination. As you might see, what I'm doing is I'm looking for the lighter areas. I'm trying to get a reasonably consistent colour, and I've got like a little light stripe just in that area there, which I'd like to try and get rid of, but I'm going to be careful that it doesn't go dark. Now this actually is, when you're doing pyrography, when you working on wood like this, it goes through different stages. You get the first stage of sort of shading is a bit like the wood's got wet. You spill a little bit of water on it and you're spreading the water out, and it then goes through a stage of looking sort of dirty, as though you've been rubbing dirt into the wood, and some of this area here is a bit like that. It then goes into sort of a more darker colour, which still looks really a bit dirty, but it's starting to look brown rather than grey. And then it goes to a sort of a rich shiny brown. It's got like copper tones in it, and it's quite a deep sort of colour, a bit like it's been polished. And then you get into the darker shades, and they then start to look a matte again. It almost loses its shiny effect. And this is just getting to this around here is just getting to that deep shine look here, and I can see it. Okay, no problem with that, Exilian. I've had my my tea, so I don't need to worry about that, but by all means, go ahead. Actually, I quite like that name, Exilian. It's I'm not likely to forget it now, but that sort of almost rolls off quite nicely. Still a bit light across there, and I think that needs to be a little bit darker as well. It looks a bit too light, too much of a contrast between this and that. Well, one of the things I ordered yesterday was some more jewellery making supplies, so I'll be a bit more ready for next time when I do that. I'm not sure though whether I'll have the patience to wait, because I intend to make myself a bracelet. I've made what, I don't know, about 15 so far. I don't have one for myself, so I intend to make myself a bracelet. Now, I'm not sure this weekend though. I'll have a little bit of time this weekend, but I'm not sure I'll have time during the day, so I kind of want to stream making the bracelet, but I kind of want to make it and I might not have time to stream it, so it's proving an interesting sort of, do I wait, or am I that impatient? And the answer probably is yes, but can I wait anyway to make it on stream? Because what I've got hopefully arriving is some stainless. They're not stainless, they're sterling silver rings. So I'd be using them to make a complete 100% bracelet. which isn't sterling silver. That kind of sounds like a teaser question. Those of you who have been in stream before probably know the reason why I said that. As to how I can make a bracelet out of 100% sterling silver rings, not using any other rings, and yet it won't be a sterling silver bracelet. But I am quite excited to see what it's like to work with them. Now that colour's looking a bit better. It might still be a little bit light, I'm not sure, we shall see. Maybe that this is also a bit too, that may be a bit too light. Maybe maybe I'll knock the flare back to just the back end of the window. That might help. Actually, now that I'm not working on the edge, I can turn the heat back up. I'm getting a colour there that probably looks, it looks here as though it's probably about right. The camera is showing it quite a lot lighter. In practice, because I had a quick look at the some of the photographs of this monorail, there is a black seal visible around the window, which is black, and I kind of could put that in as well, but at this point in time I'm avoiding it. But if I need to sort of straighten up an edge, I have the option of doing that as well. And that will have an effect of divorcing the two adjacent colours from each other as well, which may be beneficial. Have you thought maybe of Fluffy Twiglet, of trying a bit of pyrography for your college course? control. Actually, interestingly, I was about to say we're using natural substances here. Because you're making your own paper and it's thick paper, you probably find it you could, well, with care, apply pyrography to that as well. And with it being quite thick, it won't suddenly turn brown, as a very thin paper would do. You'll have some work time with it, so it might be an interesting thing, potentially. I was going to say the only problem with it is you ideally need a tool that will let you vary the heat. And they unfortunately tend to be a little bit pricey. I'm guessing well, there's a couple of options that come to mind if that was of interest. One is a soldering iron, actually, because there isn't a lot of difference between a soldering iron and some of the pyrography tools. And you can get relatively cheap soldering stations that'll let you adjust temperature. And you just use a cone or a fat soldering tip, basically. It will work just as well. You don't get any of the stamps, but depends on the sort of work you do. That's probably well, isn't really any other options that I can think of, because there are not many of the soldering iron tools that you see in hobby shops, which are look like a soldering iron. They're quite bulky handles, have a silver barrel on the end. They tend to be fixed heat, so the only way you can deal with the heat on those is to move fast. But if you're used to scribbling with a pencil, that might be something you could do. Of course, it might have absolutely no interest to you. Fine, no problem. Steady hand, patience, steady hand. Patience. Well, I mean, you've probably heard me discuss patience before. I'm not sure exactly. Yeah, you probably do, even under my definition of patience. Patience I describe as needing, when something isn't going as fast as you want it to go, or isn't going right the way you want it to go. And I guess pyrography can be a bit like that, when I'm doing that and the colour's not changing. And get a bit impatient, and then whack the heat up and you achieve the wrong thing. But generally speaking, as long as you're making some progress, patience doesn't often kick into it. But I suspect steady hand. Yeah, I have a steady hand from practice, but don't forget, if you're using a pencil, you've done a lot of pencil work, you need a steady hand for pencil work. Or you look at it on the point of view of your sketching. So the steady hand isn't a problem. It's part of the rough sketching work, and you darken areas down as you work with it. You do the same thing with pyrography. But I'm not I'm not seeking to force you or anything. It's just sort of having an interesting discussion in a way, and it's interesting different people's perceptions of pyrography as well. I know if I use this one, for example, using this, if I use this tip, I can use it like a sharp pencil. I can't so much lay it down like you would do a pencil and use the side of it, but I can use it very much like a sketching pencil. On wood. Oh, I guess I could try it on thick paper or card as well. I never actually have tried much. This one I know that I've got to work really fast with, just because that tip does, even on the lowest setting on this machine, that tip gets hot. I wouldn't be doing that, by the way, if it was. But yeah, no, it was just a thought, because of course your theme was natural. Your potential theme, should I say, was sort of the natural you were thinking about. That might come up with sort of natural, organic, that sort of thing. And heat and fire is an organic sort of medium as well. From that, or there is a perspective that would say a fire and heat is an organic sort of thing. Well, the disadvantages, I guess, for you in using it in college work is it does take a while, unless you're using high heat and just sketching. It does take a while, as you're seeing, to create images. But if you just after pure black and white images, sketch style, then they can be done quite fast. Open up. Hello, welcome. Yeah, I think I'm gonna darken this area off. It looks that it's a bit long. Is that sort of flare? Thank you very much. That's most kind of you. I'm beginning to think so as well. Hello, Brazil. I'm from the UK, from the north of England, a county called Yorkshire. It's kind of intrigued me now to. No, for Fish Wiglet, I haven't particularly thought about that. You know, your idea the other night of the clouds is a possibility, and I've kind of got to think about. Well, it's a sunny day, I guess, so I can't do grey clouds, can I? I've got to do white clouds, so that would involve me filling in and leaving gaps. Not sure whether I actually want to go to all that effort, though. I think perhaps you're right. There maybe does need to be something in there. I'm certainly got to do something at the bottom. Not sure about the top yet, though. As you say, your idea of the cloud. So, and the fact that some of this wood texture does tend to resemble sort of clouds and strip clouds. We sort of seem to have a cloud here, and then this sort of cloud front across there. It might be an interesting thing to try and pull that in some way. Maybe we'll just do it by applying a whole grey sort of wash and just seeing what pops out. Do I like Brazil? I don't know anything about it, to be honest. I couldn't really. There's not one way or the other, but. Do I like Art Brazil Romeo Brito? I don't know. To be honest, I don't know if that's an artist or it's a style, or don't know anything about it. I'm afraid. Open up, so I really can't say. Nothing particularly against things. It's I like what I like when I see it, type of thing. Oh yes, I forgot what I was doing then, which was losing this this light flare just across here and just leave the lighter one there. I could. I mean, I've got the original drawing that we did with the before we trace this down onto the board. So, I mean, the only thing though with I suppose the other way of doing clouds might be to do something just sort of like outline style. That's that's I'm trying to simulate something here, but this pencil isn't really the right one for doing this with. But something. You'd have to, something like that, or it would literally mean sort of filling in all of this area here. And then just leaving sort of bands or something like, that. Spending time doing all of that, you see. The thing that worries me about doing it though is this is the main focal point, obviously, or essentially that there, and if I put something up there that's got too much detail to it, which cloud is, then it's going to draw your eye upwards. It's not leading it down. Putting stuff down here sort of connects it with the ground, with you as the viewer. Something up there. Sorry?
You don't have clouds in Florida.
You don't have clouds. Rain falls out of the sky.
Yeah, but they don't have.
Okay. I've just been informed that in Florida you don't have clouds.
It can be cloudy and overcast.
It can be cloudy and overcast, and they can pour rain out of buckets. But they apparently don't have clouds. Don't know. Yeah, no, I fully know what you're talking about. This sort of area here that you can see. But I don't know. We'll have a think about it and see. No, it's always worth discussing ideas. You know, it's
You're going to buy it if you put a flower in.
it's always worth this. You know, discussing ideas. That's quite open to that. It's not a problem. Different people view things slightly differently as well. So sometimes it's good to have a different perspective on things. Okay. Thanks for the link, Fluffy Twiglet. Just taking a look. It that art style reminds me of sort of 60s psychedelic stuff, where they used to. Well, it also reminds me of an effect in that you sometimes see used in sort of lighting setups in theatres, where they use an oil-filled gel, coloured oil in gel in front of a spotlight, so you get like bubbles and things which weave their way through the picture. Not my favourite style, to be honest. They're okay from my perspective. I have a preference, as you've probably seen, those who've watched for a while, of some things which are more closer to a realistic photographic style, as my own preferred working style. But they're different. You know, everything. I don't particularly object. I don't object to them at all. And Fluffy Twiglet says, "Hi, Mrs. Zellerigan." And you've got a wave back. This is the bit of impatience, Fluffy Twiglet, because this isn't really changing colour very fast, and it's making me a little bit. I want it to go a bit faster, and that's where the impatience bit comes in, or the requirement for patience. Actually, sometimes it gets to the point where I start doing that just to check if there's any heat coming off the tool. I think your waves are being quite sought after almost. That's alright. I was just thinking there, I could almost do with I don't know, a sticker made up that just says something like Mrs. Evergan waves, just nothing else on it, just that.
Waving to everybody.
Yeah, she's waving to everybody. Actually, she was waving like that to everybody. But I think she's getting a little bit embarrassed now. She's going to disappear for a while.
I'm going to watch telly.
Yeah. Indeed, Fluffy Twiglet. Indeed.
Indeed, what?
She says she's made a friend.
Oh.
For which, for no apparent reason, the thought just crossed my mind is one of the things I'm going to have to do soon, possibly before Christmas, is some sort of image of a pig in one medium or other. She's absolutely mad about pigs. So I'm going to have to find some reference images, I think, of nice pig faces, and then make a picture up in some medium or other. She's almost as mad about pigs as she is about pussycats. In fact, this summer, one of the things she managed to do, which she's never been able to do before, is hold, I think it was a 3-day-old piglet, which left her grinning from ear to ear for several hours. Oh, I don't think you're embarrassed of her at all, Fluffy Twiglet. I don't think, well, she still doesn't quite understand why people want to watch me, for a start, or anybody on Twitch, so, but I think she's getting used to the idea. Colour's coming in. It's taking its time, but it's coming in. She's gone downstairs to watch a television programme at the moment. Either that or you did embarrass her, but I think it's more to watch the television programme. Don't know what it'd be. What time is it? 9:10? No, I don't know. I don't think Big Brother's on just yet, which is one of the programmes she's currently watching. And I know there's no Coronation Street on a Thursday, so it's not that. I'm waiting until somebody on Twitch starts broadcasting candle making. When they do, I don't think she'll be watching television for a while. That's one of the things that shall I say, she used to do a lot of. Doesn't at the moment for logistical reasons and mainly because getting loads of wax and moulds and things out is a bit difficult. They take up quite a bit of space, but might be persuading her to start and do that again in the future, but I'm not sure we'll get her to stream ever, but it is a pity. And if she does start that up again, I might try some wax carving, or candle carving rather than wax carving. I've tried a little bit of that in the past, and it's interesting. Again, it's something that looks deceptively simple until you try it. I don't know if anybody knows what I mean, but they're generally sort of like a star-shaped candle, quite tall, and then they have sort of effectively looks like there's ribbons and bows and things on the candle itself, and they're all created by cutting sections of the candle, or like a slice out of the candle, but you don't cut it off at the bottom, so you can like cut a point off, bend it out and twist it and then stick it back so it looks like a spiral up the outside. And they create the candles by dipping them in multicoloured wax, so that when you do things like this and you cut and twist and create a petal effect or something, you get all the stripes and colours. They look really beautiful. No, she doesn't. She's quite private, so she won't show her face, and she really doesn't understand. Not to say she doesn't like it, she doesn't understand it. She understands television programs, obviously, and why people want to watch those, but not why somebody wants to watch a stream, which is kind of almost the same thing, but she doesn't sort of consider this a proper television program, which of course it isn't, but in some ways there's not a lot of difference. You know, she'd for example, quite happily watch a documentary of pyrography, somebody making something in pyrography, but would never think of watching it on Twitch, or even for that matter on YouTube, and yet she'll watch music videos because they're made professionally. So I don't quite understand it yet. I can't understand the distinction, but she kind of has one in her own mind, but I can't understand what it is she can't understand. Now this area is a little bit light, but it's sort of doing what I want it to do now, I think. It's a pity I've got those two dark spots. But we've got this sort of dark graduation up, and it has a tendency to make it look, actually it looks a bit like it's bent at that point there. So I'd say I've got to fade it a little bit more, but it does still tend to make it look somewhat rounded slightly. Probably means I've got to darken this bottom edge off a little bit more as well, just to sort of push this a little bit further backwards. It's kind of odd because generally speaking, dark works two ways. It either brings it really forward or it pushes it really back. In this particular case, it's the dark is bringing things forward. An odd thing is that sometimes it works one way, sometimes it works the other. Generally speaking, the more distant something is, though, the lighter and more misty it will look. So when you look at landscapes, for example, the darker things are right close to you, the lighter things are further away. But just very occasionally there are certain circumstances where it does the opposite. And I'm trying to think of something I did recently where it actually was the other way around. So, you if you wanted to push something backwards, you made it black, and I'm trying to think what it was, and I can't. So I shall skip that bit. Yeah, that's one reason. Well, it's one of the reasons why I do watch them, and why I seek or sort some out. Fluffy Twiggler is that you're watching, you're learning things by watching other people do it, and hopefully them explaining it, because it's sometimes hard to just see. I guess if I just stayed silent, it'd be assuming you're able to learn something from what I'm doing. If I stayed silent, I suspect it would be a lot harder. But as I explain my thought process, or what I'm just thinking about, or how I'm doing something, then hopefully that becomes more useful as a learning experience. And now I guess not everybody wants to learn something when they watch, but I kind of find it entertaining as well when I learn things. Learning stuff to me is entertaining. So. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Push this up. What I might do is lose a little bit more of that flair. That it's kind of continuing this this line, and that's also sort of causing that bent effect as well, I think. But yes, you're right. I do need to probably take this up closer. And darken this little bit, so just literally ease it out more from top to bottom. We shall look at doing that. Mind you, one of the interesting things probably is I suspect you didn't notice that until I told you. That it looked bent. Sometimes you don't see it until you've got some trigger, and then it becomes extremely obvious. That's why I'm not that convinced about this at the bottom just yet. I know what it's meant to be, and therefore I see it as that. But it's really difficult. Normally what I do in that sort of situation is go, okay, I'm just going to put this to one side for a couple of days, and then take another look at it. So just completely not look at it at all, and then look at it with sort of fresh eyes. I'm kind of ignoring this bit of the image as well, just to try and do the same thing, and working up here. So hopefully after a couple of days, and I start to concentrate more down here, I'm going to see that with a bit more fresh eyes, and just decide whether or not that really does look like the underneath. But you see, I kind of can't even ask you guys, because I'm prompting you with what it is that it's supposed to look like. And the idea, of course, is that somebody who doesn't know what it's supposed to be will look at it and understand it. Yeah, you see, you just need the prompt, and that one looks nice. That looks curved. I like that. It's just this one just looked as though it got a kink in it. But there again, I suppose the same thing applies. If you're, despite me saying it looks like a kink, if you guys are saying, it doesn't, then maybe I have to take another look at it. I can get the same fixation in my mind as well, that hey, this doesn't look right, and then I don't see anything different. Acrylics and watercolour. Okay. They'd have to be really thinned down for that, wouldn't they? I'd have thought to act as to actually soak in, as opposed to just runny paint. the thought that crossed my mind when you said they're adding pastels. Yeah, indeed. Yeah, what has been seen cannot be unseen. The interesting thought that crossed my mind with the pastels you just mentioned there is I wonder what would happen, or I wonder how it would look to use pastel powder. You know, powder the pastel and then apply the powder. I just say with like a face brush or something soft. This is obviously a bit too hard, but to just sort of pick it up and brush it onto the paper, as opposed to applying it with a pastel and then applying the pastel to the paper and then smudging it or blending it with a paper stick or something. Yeah, tiny amount of acrylic to double out. I'm kind of surprised that works, to be honest, because acrylic, if you over dilute, from airbrushing, if you over dilute acrylic, it kind of breaks down. It doesn't really sort of. You might think it would go like really transparent when you airbrush it, and it kind of doesn't. It sort of doesn't look like much at all. But yeah, I can see it dried faster. I'm surprised. I thought it might have dried a lot slower. Although I'm going to say acrylic normally does dry quite slow, but there again, if you over dilute it, you've lost the carrier, the solvent of the acrylic, and it's not exactly water. It is water based, but it's not exactly the solvent isn't exactly water. As kind of a cross-linking effect goes on, which I suppose you lose. Pastel chalk powder to water. Don't know about that. What might be interesting with something like pastel or chalk on water would be, the oil paint on water, and then a sheet of paper on top and lift it, or any object actually. You can push through the film. And then take out, and the oil paint film stays on the object or on the paper, so you get these swirly pattern stuff. I wonder if that sort of thing would work with chalk and powder on water, because it would sit on the surface of the water, and then kind of all it would need. Well, I suppose putting the paper on top might be enough to get water into the paper, which carries the pastel chalk with it. There's all sorts of interesting ideas in a way, isn't there, when you start thinking outside traditional sort of media or using media in a traditional way. And of course thinking of not using media in a traditional way, one of the things that just crossed my mind is, I wonder if you could use a sandblasting tool with chalk powder in it, and quite what that would do, because it would tend to, if you use sort of quite coarse paper, a bit like your made paper, it would tend to force it into the fibres. Of course the room would get really dusty. You'd need to use an extractor of some kind, but I wonder quite what effects that would be. You couldn't use an airbrush because it would just clog, but something like a miniature sandblast tool, because it's designed obviously to take quite large particles. And because it might be complete rubbish and not work at all and just blast everywhere and not stick to the paper, but kind of a slight variation on your blowing ink onto the rabbit. I think I saw the rabbit with trousers, but I kind of saw something else just to the left of it which looked more stand out to me. I can't remember what it was now. by which you can probably gather, Fluffy Twiglet, I discovered the next page button, or the last page button at the bottom of the page. Hopefully those of you that are watching don't mind this discussion on art topics with Fluffy Twiglet there. Feel free to join in, by the way, or suggest another interesting subject to discuss as well. Well, I'm not sure I'd seen it if you hadn't told, if it didn't have that rabbit in trousers. I think I saw the trousers bit more than the rabbit, to be honest. But what was it I saw? I saw something else in there. Actually, I tell you what, it doesn't actually so much strike me as a, assuming we're talking about the same thing, same area. It doesn't so much strike me as a rabbit. It's more like a mouse in trousers. Or perhaps I'm seeing a different bit of the image. The face that I'm seeing looks more mouse-like. The ears, yes, the long sort of ears, but if we're seeing the same thing, it's in this sort of position on the image. Ah, thank you. Yeah, I need to develop the shade up a little bit better, but yes, it's looking more graduated now and a smoother curve. See guys, I have no problem with considered critique on anything that I'm doing. I will usually listen to other people's opinions on my artwork, providing it is accompanied by an explanation as to why. So if I get somebody comes up to me and says, "That's terrible, but what explain why?" then I just know they're an idiot. But if they say, "That's not very good because," and then explain it, well, that's a different matter. Then I'll listen. I might still think they're an idiot, but afterwards, but I will listen. Yeah, so the sort of comment I'd listen to and then discount, shall we say, would be if somebody came up to me and said, that doesn't look very good because steam engines have to have a funnel. I'd go, yes, I agree with you. Thank you very much. Idiot. But, you know, appropriate comments. But I'm an old person, you see. I've got past that stage of having a particular strong ego about things that I've done. Still haven't quite got that graduation right. It's getting there, but I'm still... The other thing about this is I'm working with quite a hot tool as well, but it's not... it's taking its time reacting is the wood. That's a bit better there. Sometimes I get a little bit perfectionist about this, and other times I'll go, yeah, that's about right. I'm thinking I want a little bit more colour up into here. So just spread out that transition just a little tiny bit. It's kind of looking like it now. Yeah, that's exactly what I was seeing. Yeah, it was the trousers comment that stood out. I saw the trousers before I saw the rest, but yeah, the face is sort of strikes me as more sort of mouse-ish with a long nose rather than. In fact, I'm trying to think. It strikes me as a character in something. That sort of look. I don't fantastically see the ears very much there. And there's just above him. There's a bit that looks a bit like a dog with its head on its side, or the face of a dog with its head on its side. You can see all sorts of things in ink blots. And in fact, I've just seen something else which is resembles a little bit like sort of a bear or a dolphin, a short dolphin nose face. There's definitely some sort of like beak sort of thing, which is just in that area there, right against the top. It's amazing, isn't it? The human's ability to see faces and recognise objects in things. I'm trying to think what it. Yes. It's not quite a bear because the nose is too high, but it's not quite a dolphin because the nose isn't long enough. But it's some sort of face shape in there. Actually, you've got them all over the place when you start looking. Because there's something just under the mouse. If you look at the bottom, there's kind of an animal shape there as well. Sort of a donkey almost sort of shape. In actual fact, no, it's sort of almost a donkey shape at the bottom. Now then, I've got you searching that image now, haven't I, for all these things. You've got a veritable menagerie in there. Okay. That's a lot better, and I think we'll leave that window as it is for a while. You see, once you fixate on something, it's hard to see something else. I've seen 1, 2, 3 different animals in there on top of the on top of the rabbit. I wonder if I can see any more. I don't know, maybe that's a challenge for everybody else watching the stream as well. See what other animals they can see in there. There could almost be a snail or yeah, almost a sort of almost a cartoony sort of snail I can possibly see. I can almost see, I say almost see a dog with like a floppy ear. Right, large weird headdress thing in the top right. The headdress is white and her face is in shadow. Not quite seeing. I don't think I'm seeing that one. I wonder if I can just see if I can capture a capture the, yeah, in the window, I think. Let's see if I can just grab this. That isn't what I want it to do, so let me just get rid of that. That's almost what I want it to do, but not quite. Okay. Okay, that edit scene now. Okay, so let me just pull this across everything. So what I'm seeing is I'm seeing a dog there. So you've got the two eyes and one ear, sort of out that side there. I'm seeing a donkeyish looking sort of face down here. Seeing sort of a turtle just there, and there's a sort of a dog looking face here with sort of a floppy ear and his nose. and there's something bear-like up there. So there's the eye, and this is the mouth. And I thought I saw something off to the left, but I can't see it now. That looks like a mouse to me. The face looks more like a mouse than a rabbit. I can sort of see the ears, but the face just looks more like a mouse. Bird in the top left. This is like one of those sort of spot the challenge, isn't it? So that's yeah. You're saying that's the woman with the headdress, and the face is in shadow. I still can't see that one. The animal is white with the 2 black streaks near the top left corner for a beak. So you're talking about that being the beak there. So that's the beak. Oh, sort of. So is that the neck then? Neck and body just coming down here. Yeah, so it's a bit sort of I don't know, swan-like, long neck. Yeah. You're saying there's something there. No, that's one I can't see. I can't see what you're seeing there. In fact, the dog now, look, I'm starting to see a body sort of down here, so it's a bit like a Dalmatian with black spots. Yeah, this is a pyrography stream though, not hunt the animals. Anybody else who's watching, feel free to drop in and mention if you're seeing any as well. It kind of is fun, and trying to see what other people can see. I think that's about it for me, to be honest. Without sort of going a little bit. I mean, there is a face shape there, which isn't quite skull-like, but you've got like eye sockets. You'll be forever spotting things in here now after this, you know, Fluffy Twiglet. Yeah, you almost can't fail to see things now. That Dalmatian keeps jumping out at me now, and the duck or the swan sort of shape, and the little tortoise. Yeah, I've grabbed the image because I didn't want to Otherwise I'd have drawn on over the top of it myself, but I didn't want to expose the address. Actually, I might be able to. Let me just fire this up. Let me just get rid of that and actually bring another window capture up. Let me just edit that one. Now I've got a guess as to which window this is going to show. Okay, that might work. So let me just turn that off a second, whilst I just, so I don't show the whole of my disk. And that image there. And zoom into that. Okay. Welcome to Pyrography, indeed. So let's see if I can get my pen out and let's have a. Oh, I've got a pencil. Let's make it. Actually, let's make it a red pencil. So we've got the sort of Dalmatian around there, and you've got the legs, sort of front legs like that. I can definitely see your sort of duck sort of shape around there. Let me get that out of the way. As you said, there's the rabbit, or what I see as the mouse. Excuse me. I guess there's some arm in there somewhere, but like that. I see sort of a turtle shell there with the head of the turtle. But equally, and now that I've put that in, it's a bit hard for me to see the it's kind of a dog shape with so there's his eye, and there it could almost be a pig shape, but it struck me more like a dog just there. There's the bear looking thing here with it, and there's the eye, and then there was something almost sort of, I'm not quite sure sort of head wise, but sort of something down there with the two eyes and a nose, which is kind of a donkey like shape that I saw. There's kind of a sort of a skull sort of shape there that I was seeing. I think that's about all the ones that I'm sort of seeing at the moment, without sort of going too silly into it and sort of trying to force things. But they're kind of the ones that sort of jumped out at me to start with once I started looking at these things. Because there is almost sort of a couple of things around here. There's, you know, the Ice Age character, the squirrel type character. There's kind of that sort of face just there, and just behind it almost if you look at this with an eye there, that's kind of like a bunny face. But I think I'll leave it at that point. Yeah, it could well be well, it is because you're seeing it. But to be honest, it's one of those. I'm guessing it's one of those things. It's like the old woman, beautiful bride image. Once you see one, it's hard to see the other. You've got to force your mind to see it, and then you can sort of swap between them. I can't quite get your woman's face with the headdress. And I guess once I see it, then I'll be able to see it. But I can't quite. I can't. I can kind of see a headdress looking thing. But it doesn't quite gel with me just yet. Anyway, hopefully you guys who are watching didn't mind that little exercise. It's quite. I mean, that's just obviously that this image that Fluffy Twiglet created there was by dropping ink onto a paper and blowing it around with a straw. So there was no actual intention to create actual sort of animal faces in there. It's just interesting how your mind just spots these things and pulls them out with very little information, I find it, well, I kind of find it fascinating in a way. It's a bit like, was it Where's Wally, I think, isn't it, where they do scenes and you're looking for a particular character in there. They're sort of hidden in the background. Ah dear. And let's see if I can do a bit of pyrography for a few minutes. Yeah, indeed. Well, this is sort of an art and crafts stream, so that's a little bit of art in a way. And my not very good drawing to start with. But maybe I'll do a stream one of these days where I actually do draw on that monitor, and we'll actually get do some real electronic art. Not that isn't real electronic art, but you actually do it as a stream. Let's just colour that a little bit. It's a bit grey, I think. Most of the rest has now gone brown, so let's just lose the slight grey around there. I actually called off doing any more on that, hadn't I? Now I'm busy doing a little bit more. Okay, so a little bit more is going to be to darken this blue stripe around here. So this has got I don't want to darken this too much. So this is going to be an interesting, because I really don't want to get black spots in this. But this is way too light now compared to the white areas. It's way too light, and given that that's sort of grey or it's white in shadow, this should be somewhat darker. Nowhere near as dark as that. Somewhere in this sort of region of colour. and that may possibly need to go a little bit darker still, but we'll kind of come to that later. Hey, no, don't worry about it, Fluffy Twiggler. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed doing that. I mean, if this is a variety kind of stream, you know, we do different things. So, you know, for 20 minutes we just went off and did something slightly different. I don't mind doing that at all. I mean, and especially there's no reason for you to say so. If I hadn't wanted to do it, I wouldn't have done it. I do suspect now, though, Fluffy Twiggler, for the rest of this evening or possibly tomorrow, you're going to be studying that image, looking for other things. I'll bet you actually do find some as well. I tell you what, I'm going to have to make sure I close that window down at the end of the stream. Otherwise, I'll spend the time after the stream studying that image when I've got some other things I really want to get on with. It's kind of like one of those intellectual challenges that sometimes you'll just occupy you without you realising that you just fixated on it. One of the things you yeah, you did indeed find something fun. What I was just about to say, one of the things when you're working with a pyrographic tool is to you know, when you're trying to hold it in a particular position, as I'm doing, you've got to remember, one thing to bear in mind or to remember is that if you move your fingers, if you don't move your arm or your wrist to go with it, you move in an arc. So what's flat at the top becomes the tip at the bottom, or vice versa. And it's something I just keep forgetting, but in pyrographic terms, when you start at the top with a because you're working with the flat of this particular tool, as you get nearer the bottom, if you don't move your arm to go with it, so you keep the tool parallel, you start creating lines because you're starting to work with the tip of the tool. So just bother. Just one of those things to one more thing to remember when you're doing this sort of stuff. It comes with time. You realise what's going on, and like I just did, and remember that I've got to move my wrist. Now then, I'm getting dark marks just down there, so I'm going to let the wood over there cool off. In actual fact, I'm going to let the whole wood cool off, and I shall come back to that tomorrow. Indeed, as you just rightly say, it's 10 p.m. It's time that we reached the end of the stream. So we've spent a lot of time tonight working on this window. Small details that make a difference as to how something looks ultimately. So we've been sort of rounding off this window, whereas before it kind of looked like it had a couple of kinks in it almost. Now looking at darkening this area off here, because it's too light compared with the rest, and it's meant to be a blue. Well, that's the original model, but it's meant to be, because each of the monorails had different coloured stripes and bodies, so it's meant to be the distinguishing mark. It's the go faster stripe, so it's meant to stand out a little bit, and it's too light compared to the white areas. And this is still the same blue, but the angle of it means it looks a different shade, so I've got some work to do on there and just distinguish it from what is a dark grey. So that's the next area to work on, and then these two colour bands here, possibly doing some work with this white as well. We shall see, but that's probably what we'll be doing tomorrow. Yeah, well, I hope you do get your kit by tomorrow. Yeah, well, maybe that ought to be the subject of your streams, Fluffy Twiglet. You do one of those live on stream somehow, and then you have fun with the audience trying to pick out the shapes and the animals or whatever it is that's in there, and go from there. Could be quite a fun stream. Okay, guys. Castang, thank you very much for that. What sort of wood it is? This is birch plywood. So the surface and back surface is birch plywood. I don't actually know what the core is, and the reason for birch is it's a very white wood, and as I apply pyrography across the rings, and you can see sort of the tree construction here and the rings of it. It doesn't change colour too much across there. Some woods have a quite distinct difference in colour when you apply a pyrographic tool across them. And it's plywood because if it was solid and I put this much pyrography onto it, the fact that this pyrography makes the wood shrink would cause this to warp the birch plywood, the plywood element of it, and it is, as you can see, it does have a warp on it now, but it does resist that warping effect. And one of the things I can do ultimately, if it warps a bit more than this is okay, but if it warps a bit more, I can wet the back and then run just a normal clothes iron over the back, which will tend to shrink it and apply an opposite force. But unfortunately, sorry, Catstang, you just joined at the end of the stream tonight. I have some other things, unfortunately, I need to get on with, so I can't really extend the stream. But I want to say thank you to everybody that's been in the stream tonight, particularly there to Fluffy Twiglet and her rather interesting challenge of picking characters out of an blown ink plot type image. So if there's anybody that's watching that isn't following, then I do of course encourage you to do so. Come back and see me another time. Let Twitch notify you when I go live. But you don't have to do that, obviously. But if you just want the notification, you can follow me on Twitter @ZeragonArt. Details are below the stream window. They will also be on the end plate in a moment. On the other hand, if you'd just like to try and catch me one evening, it's evening for me, I'm in the UK, I stream from 8 p.m. UK time, 1900 hours GMT, or about 2 hours ago was 8 PM, so that time. 7 nights a week at the moment, other than family events or other things that take me away from the stream. Thank you all. Exilian, thank you very much for joining this evening, and everyone else. And I'll hope to see you again on a future stream. Bye bye.